Hey, and good evening. Welcome to Cosmic Blueprints for the second show with our brand new base at Critical Mass Radio. Just waiting for Tony to get on the air here with our guest, Clive DeCarl. And that should be, you know what it's like. You've tuned into us before, so it's never the easiest trying to get that Skype button up some night, but regardless. So I will just keep my eyes open on the board and wait for Tony. And Clive. So, yep, there we go. Tony, well, there's Tony now. Got him. All right, guys. So now we're just waiting for Clive. Tony, have you on the board? How are you doing?
Not too bad. Just juggling Skype's and browser settings, but we're getting there. Yep, I'm just trying to bring Clive in as we speak. So if you just bear with me a moment there. Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. No, I just posting around. So. Just a quick announcement for those that had the courtesy to tune in and follow our shows from Freedom Reigns. It's been quite an interesting day. It's been a day full of Deatra making sure that I was blocked so I couldn't say anything. And well, I guess there's one page I can still chat on, but it's not for any animosity or whatever. I just found it quite interesting in that. Here I was still, and I still am. Santo was over on Freedom Reigns tonight, finishing off his two shows, and of course I did invite him to utilize our platform, which Santo's platform is our platform, and our platform is Santo's. That's how it works. We kind of do this together. That's the whole idea of synchronicity, and the concept of synchronicity, bringing everything into convergences. So I just thought it was kind of childish. So, but I did want to get this little announcement out. I was asked. I guess during the summer, we're talking to Deatra about wedding rings, and my friend Victoria, very skilled, she ended up making them for Deatra. There's a couple of little stories in behind this, but let's just say it wasn't. It's not something that Vic had done in a while. She's a silversmith, but hadn't been practicing her art for a few years. Based on family raising and stuff like that. But anyway, silver was provided, me. That was the arrangement that was made. And Victoria made the rings, and actually I didn't find out until Deatra had tagged me later, just prior to her wedding. Of course, there was a little bit of a chat going on where she was taking a dig at me in a conversation with Tony about someone promising her rings, and they hadn't got there yet. That was one more thing that she had to worry about. And unbeknownst to her, the rings were already on the way when she was making these comments. But then, it's amazing what people, end up showing themselves. I go on to a list of stuff. I'm not going to sit here and bitch and gripe like a child, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that someone could do that. It's not something I would do. We talked about this last night, so I'm not going to bitch and gripe about it. Just thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, Tony, you there? Or did I lose you? Did I lose
No,
Tony
I'm
again?
still here. I'm just joking.
Okay, yeah. So they're still going. So just sharing a bit of the shenanigans that are going on, and kind of interesting that there was a comment made to Deatra with regards to never promoting Santo or Tony or myself. And anytime Pete was on, she was always promoting that. And when she was confronted with it, the comment that came back was because Kate was too lazy to schedule it. And isn't it funny? Actually did all the scheduling.
Yeah.
This is how childish it got. So, I mean, when you're that desperate, guys, please, just give it up. Move along. Just drop it. Frig. Unbelievable. Child. Anyway, so let me know when you're ready, Tony, and just want to see if... Oh, there we go. We got Clive now. There he is. Clive, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Hi, Clive. Tony here.
Hi, Tony.
Hello. You have a good rest and ready for the show?
Yeah, absolutely ready. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm not sure if you finished on that subject, Kate.
Oh, I could go on for hours, but it's pointless. It's like, you see, here's the thing, and I don't know if I mentioned this last night, but there was a little dig taken at Tony on Friday morning that he had said thanks about a poster that Rory had made for him, and then Deatra came back with well, we're going to be changing hosts and blah, blah, blah. And the energy in it was pretty shitty, to be honest. And I knew something was up, and that's why I had my guard up all day, and that's why I put the board up that she eventually shut down that night, 5 minutes before the show, and then 22 seconds into the show after I had salvaged it. And of course, once you hit end episode, you can't reschedule it. So, and computers don't do that shit all by themselves. That's actually a manual process that requires a little skill. So, you know, you can call it fluky or whatever, but sorry, when I saw the button actually being pushed, no, that's not a fluke. But anyway, yeah, it was quite something. And well, with my guard being up, I forget where I was going to go with this. Where was I at, Tony? There's so many here. Oh, it's about doing laundry in public. Now, I'll be really fair here. I could do a lot of laundry in public right now, but I don't do that. So I just pass a couple of things along just to, you know, I'm not interested in quote, cat fights, unquote, so I'm not going to bother. But I just want to put things on the table. You know, if somebody wants to take shots at me, that's fine. Here it is on the table. She even got to the point where, and she likes to talk. I know that because I spent a lot of time on the phone with her, listening to her. And she likes to do a lot of other people's laundry as well. And here's the thing, right? Being the kind of being that I am, a lot of information gets back to me, as in all of it eventually. And it got back to me that Yes was telling people that I had multiple donation buttons all over the web. And when this person confronted her on it, show me. Well, of course she couldn't because I don't. But anyway, I mean, this is how bad it got. And this is what I was being silent about. But silence no more. If you want to continue playing the outro, I will play, and I will really bring out the laundry on you, hon. So just drop it. And thank you for blocking me from Freedom Reigns after building up so many people into the Freedom Reigns Facebook page. Don't worry, they will be leaving. I'm sure many already have. Yeah, so there you go. Laundry done. It's in the dryer now.
Absolutely. Yes, unfortunately that's one of the situations that we can now joyfully put behind us and move on to pastures greener and better.
Absolutely. Let's go. That was our preamble, Clive, because we're going to be talking about healing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Energy healing.
And, yep, as a way of an intro, we have with us tonight Clive DeClaire. Have I pronounced that right, Clive?
No, Clive DeCarl.
DeCarl. Okay, yep, wonderful. You've recently done quite a lot of you've done a lot of stuff. Mainly your field is healing and, medicine of all descriptions, vitamins, minerals, cell salts, lots and lots of different aspects of healing and all sorts of things. But I learned quite a while ago it's easier to allow the people to introduce themselves as obviously nobody else can. So over to you. If you could just give us a little bit of information about what you've done, Clive, and how you ended up on this path, and anything else you'd like to let the listeners know initially.
Well, thank you very much. I'll tell you sort of very briefly about my history. When I was 11, I had a somewhat extraordinary experience. I went fishing, and we were in very clear water, and we had a bucket with a glass bottom, so you could actually see all the fish. And the person I was with, they had no trouble catching fish at all. In fact, they caught about 20 in a half-an-hour period. But every time I touched the fishing rod, whereas the fish previously had been in a frenzy trying to actually get on the hook, the moment I touched the hook, they just slowed right down and just swam away. And I realized the fish were reading my mind, because my friend was very keen on catching fish, but I hated the idea, absolutely hated it, and I was dreading catching one, because then I'd have to pull the hook out of the fish's mouth, and the idea really upset me. And I realized at 11 that the fish knew who was who. And other things happened as I got older. One day I was at home, and suddenly I found myself floating on the ceiling, looking at my body, which was sort of on the floor, sort of curled up in a very unnatural position. And suddenly I had a microsecond of remembering my life. Then the next moment I felt this incredible joy of freedom as I realized I wasn't my body, and there I was floating around on the ceiling, and I was just thinking how ridiculously cool this was and fantastic, with every worry I'd ever had lifted off me. Then suddenly I sort of snapped back into my body again. And then around that sort of time, a lot of things started happening, and I had quite a few sort of knowings of things. And one of them was that I suddenly realized that I was going to become type 1 diabetic. And this was quite a frightening prospect, but I didn't really give it much thought until I did indeed come type 1 diabetic. And at that point, I'd been working in ophthalmic optics for several years, and suddenly my body didn't seem to work so well anymore. I was having difficulty walking, and over a period of a few months, I became arthritic to such a degree that I had to stop driving the car, then I had to stop going to work, and in the end I ended up in hospital for 3 weeks. And at the end of that process of prodding me and testing me and so on, with me refusing all the drugs they tried to give me, after 3 weeks they said, well, we don't know what the cause of your problem is, we don't know what the cure is, but we can operate this afternoon. So I got somebody to take me out, and they took me to a chap called Patrick Holford. And he said to me, well, you don't need drugs or surgery, you just need minerals and vitamins. And he was completely right. And I found that the ugliness of the swollen joints completely went. And after about a year or so, I was back to normal, about a year and a half, 2 years, and I got my strength back. And so about 15 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to relax a little bit. I'd got an organic farm, and life was pretty sweet. And I started studying the most exciting things I possibly could. And that morphed into what I'm doing now, because I realized that no matter what I was learning, there were people dying unnecessarily of all sorts of things. And when I'd been in my 20s, I'd been taught how to do energy healing, and although people told me I was good at it, I'd never really used it. But it's just in the last 15 years that I've started to sort of put my talents to work a bit. But I bill myself as a researcher, and I started researching spontaneous remission. The people who did get better, how did they achieve it? And in the course of this, people started telling me about frequency devices, and eventually I bought a sort of RF diathermy Tesla device, and the very first time I used it, I hadn't even read the instructions. It only had one knob on it, and I had this neighbour who'd got a locked neck, and they hadn't been able to drive for 3 months. So I used the machine on their neck for about 5 minutes, and immediately they could move their neck again. And the next person I treated had explained to me that he was a DJ, and 40 years before he'd seen a speaker column about to collapse and kill this young girl, and he managed to run underneath the speaker column and prop it up. But before he got rescued, he crushed 3 discs. So when I met this guy, he explained to me that he'd been on morphine for years, and that the only way he'd actually come out that day was because of all the morphine. Anyway, I used the frequency device on him for a few minutes, and he got up and said, I'm completely out of pain. I explained that he's a bit like a baked cake. Remember, this is only the second time I've ever used the machine, so I was fairly shocked at the result. And I said, well, you need to be really, really careful now. So we were at a party. Anyway, I leave about midnight. I get a call from him 8 o'clock the next morning. He says, Clive, I had the best night ever. I danced till 4 in the morning, and I sort of groaned internally. And he said, now I'm feeling worse than I was before. So I went round to his house, worked on him for 10 minutes again, and he then stayed out of pain for about 3 years. And I've treated him once more, and as far as I know, he's still out of pain. But it's a little brief history of me.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with a little bit of energy, isn't it? To say the least, it is just staggering. I was explaining the situation to you earlier, but about treating a woman that's been through specialist after specialist. She's had keyhole surgery. They've told us you've got to have a hip replacement, etc. And within 5 minutes of treating her with energy medicine, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, of treating her with energy medicine, she was jumping around on the same leg that she couldn't bear to put weight on before the treatment session. So energy medicine, and there's lots of different types of it, is incredible. It's absolutely staggering what you can achieve, and especially when you think of the physical problems that if you've got, for instance, actual discs missing, then there's a physical problem there. So, you can obviously understand why there's a pain there. So it doesn't make actual sense, really, how the pain can go from like a 10 to a 0 when the physical problem is still actually, in actual fact, it's not cured, it's not fixed. You haven't grown a disc in 2.5 seconds. But the pain level has dropped, and it's incredible what the body's capable of doing, isn't it?
I studied for a bit with Eric Pearl, the guy who does reconnective healing, and the most powerful thing he said to me is, look, a healing can happen in a microsecond, but if your client thinks it's going to take a year, it's likely to take a year, and your job is to reduce that time from a year as close to a microsecond as his belief system can take.
Yeah, indeed, that's one of the massive benefits of energy medicine, because people do not comprehend the magnitude of the consciousness shift that takes place when somebody's been in pain for 20 years and on morphine, and then, within minutes, they're completely out of the pain for the first time in 20 years. It's like, oh my God, what's happened? And they have to have a mental shift, a consciousness shift, in order to grasp what's actually just occurred to them. Because it's like, hang on, this doesn't make any sense. 1 minute I'm in pain and I have been for 20 years on opiates every day of my life. The next minute I'm out of pain. It's like, whoa, what just happened?
I find that to prime people, I always explain as many cases as I have time to of people who have instant results, to try and get them accustomed to the idea that they too might have an instant result. And then I use a lot of positive reinforcement, which you could call hypnosis, subtle hypnosis, so that they are ready for an instant healing. And so I try to get them to expect it ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that I was going to mention, but I actually forgot to mention, was Bruce, it's not Bruce Cafe, Greg Braden, and Biology of Belief.
You're thinking of Bruce Lipton.
Bruce Lipton, that's the one, not Greg Braden. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. Believe it or not, I have read the book, but there's just so many names buzzing around in here with lots of different topics. It's very difficult sometimes to catch hold of the right one. Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton. Incredible book.
Immensely important.
Yeah, totally. It revolutionizes biology, basically. I'll let you step in to see if you want to give a little bit about the background behind the book and the gentleman involved.
Well, yes. He's a cell biologist, and many years ago he was studying adopted children, and he noticed that children adopted into a family who, for instance, had cancer running through it, often got cancer. Let's say the adopted child was adopted into a family where heart disease was rife, they'd often get heart disease. He was therefore proving that it's not genetic, but is environmental. If the adopted parents ate a poor diet which led to cancer, then the child would eat the poor diet and get the cancer. And whereas prior to his work, people thought that almost 100% of diseases were passed down from parents to children, he proved that's not the case at all. And epigenetics shows that you can rewrite your genetic code and genes express themselves depending on the environment that you put them in. And other researchers have shown that you can keep cells alive indefinitely. So the interesting thing is what can one do now to extend the life of cells. And there's one wonderful thing that Bruce Lipton says in one of his other books, which is the bad news is that there is no key to the door that unlocks the secrets of the universe. The good news is that the door was never locked.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, one of the examples that he gives is like, if you go to the doctor and the doctor's basically turning around and you can say, oh, you know, you've got 6 months, you're going to have this, chemotherapy this, chemotherapy that, and blah, 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 you know, I'll get your affairs in order. Then 9 times out of 10, if you are listening to that individual, even though that individual is basically been conditioned himself into giving you that information because that's what he's been taught, and if you believe that information, then, as in the biology of belief, you're pretty much sure to, you know, to manifest that result. But
you can time your watch by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they said 6 weeks, it'll be 6 weeks to the day if you happen to believe it. I mean, the death trauma of being diagnosed with cancer, I've seen that sort of thing put 10 years on people.
Yeah, and that's just a diagnosis.
Yeah.
But there have been, I've actually personally come into one particular case whereby he was just a gentleman that I happened to meet, and you know, he was telling me how I mean, this is before I've said anything, but he was telling me about how he was diagnosed with cancer 15 years ago, and you know, he'd gone into the doctor and the doctor said, right, you've got 3 months or whatever. And he turned around and said, no, sod you, I'm off, you know, you're wrong, I'm not having it, and I'm going to go to another specialist. He went to another specialist, the same guy, or another specialist said the same thing, and he said, no, you know, F you too, I'm off again, I'm not having that, I don't believe you, blah, blah, blah. And he was absolutely adamant that he wasn't having any of it. And this is like, you know, 15 years later, I'm sitting next to the guy having a chat about this. And he's been, you know, cancer-free for 15 years. And he since went back to the doctor, I remember him telling me, a long time after, and said, yeah, check me out. I want to know to see what your, you know, instruments are going to tell you about me and about my biological state. And he was, no, you're clear, you're free, there's nothing wrong with you. What are we checking you for? And he's like, well, you know, I just wanted to hear that, and, you know, just left. But, yeah, there's a couple of examples. It is the biology of belief that programs and patterns the cell memory, the biological memory of the cells, as it were.
Yes, indeed. You know, I've seen cancer overcome so many times now, and you know, I studied particularly spontaneous remission from cancer, the cancer survivors. What did they do right? And the first thing I really noticed was that they said that it was when they became grateful to the cancer. And I think this is true across all the diseases quite often if they're very, very serious. The people say, the people who recovered say, well, it was at that moment when I became grateful to the cancer because I realized that there was something wrong in my life. I was eating wrong, married to the wrong person, doing the wrong job, living in the wrong place, whatever it was, or I got over the shock, I got over the trauma, I got over the sadness. And it's at that stage where they're grateful to it because now they've changed their life. Then they get better.
Yeah, it's like acceptance, isn't it? You accept it for its value. Accept it for value is another term. Once you accept it, there's an imbalance, and once you look, say, okay, well, what's the imbalance? Then you see the imbalance for what it is, as in a disease, an imbalance, and you correct that imbalance, and the disease is just merely a symptom or a manifestation of the problem. And unfortunately, today most people are treating the symptoms rather than treating the problems, and that's when it just goes way off balance, and you end up, you know, necking more pills than than you can imagine to try and get over the symptoms, which are making you worse and worse and worse. Even though initially it might seem like it's putting the effects at bay, it's actually doing you no good whatsoever.
Yes, quite.
But, on the subject of cancer alone, I mean, I don't know how many cancer cures I've come across. There's, cannabis oils, there's bicarbonate of soda, there's apricot kernels, there's all sorts of different things that can help out in that respect. The main one being really is the body acidity level and clean water. If you change the environment of the body where cancer can thrive, which is basically an acidic environment, into an alkaline environment, that means that basically the cancer can't thrive there, it can't live there, the environment is not hospitable to that form of disease. I mean,
that's the theory, but I've just watched somebody that I know well go over to Dr. Young in America and followed that exact treatment, but it didn't work for them. They were super alkaline while they were there, but they still died.
Okay, that's interesting. That's the first one I've come across on that level, I must admit, personally. But, I wonder if Rick Simpson's Run from the Cure would have given them any respite.
Well, they tried that, and I got a phone call from her, and I don't know the person who'd actually supplied her, but they hadn't done a very good job. I got a phone call from her one day saying, I'm in a secure unit of a hospital, would you come and rescue me? And I knew that she didn't really have anybody in the world too much to look after her, so I went up to London, which was about a 3-hour journey, and I then released her from the secure unit, and she was now in casualty, and she was wobbling like a jelly, could barely speak, and so 2 other people had arrived at that point, and all we could do for the next, I think, 5 hours was to hug her and tell her that everything would be all right. I think it must have taken her about 10 hours in total to come down from having overdosed on it.
Crikey.
And so I've seen it a few times now. People have got to be very careful not to take too much. Very careful.
Okay.
And taking a little bit of oil, a tiny bit often, rather than a lot at one time.
Yes. That's
very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit I'm fishing in the dark here. I've only got my own information to go on, but I did spend 2 months on MMS. I had a brilliant clean out. It cleaned my system out wonderful. But I ended up at one particular point getting sensitive teeth from it because I think I overdid it a bit for 2 months solid. But I don't know if you had any experience with MMS.
Well, I did. I read Jim Humble's book, and I don't know, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I tried it myself. I got up to 15 drops, and it floored me at 15 drops. I was ill for quite a few days, and at that point I knew lots and lots of people who were trying it, and so many people reached a threshold. I mean, later, Jim Humble changed his instructions and said, little and often, don't go more than 3 drops, but I know several people who got into trouble on 1 drop.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with
while
that.
it works, and it's absolutely a brilliant cure, honestly, I think there are ones that have slightly less risks attached.
No, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying there are lots of different things out there, and we're just looking at a couple of the different ones. But as I say, from personal experience, I had a great clean out on it, and I was fine with it. You can't explain the feeling on it, which I had, which was an inside-out clean feeling. There's literally, pardon me, there's literally no other way to explain it really apart from that. It's like it cleans everything out right the way through your system. But yeah. Also, additionally, you are correct. Jim said to take a couple of drops or 1 drop several times throughout the day more recently. But I understand that over and above that, he's also developed MMS2 and even gone on further from that to develop MMS3. Now, yeah, exactly. MMS2 is like an immune system in a bottle, I believe, and I'm not too sure what MMS3 is, but have you any information on those?
I've read about them, but not tried 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much the same as myself. Yeah.
I think a lot of these things go in waves, and at the moment, the wave that I observe is the wave of people using distilled water as a cure.
Yeah, more so. The more, yeah. There's lots more people coming around to that, aren't there?
And the number of people who are reporting success to me with that is extraordinarily high, much higher than I ever would have guessed, and much higher than the results of MMS.
Yeah. Another one's actually just sprung to mind. Somebody was telling me about it recently. Hydrogen peroxide.
Well, hydrogen peroxide is a really, really interesting one. The most dramatic thing that I've observed is that I saw somebody, I was introduced to this person, and they had lung cancer. And every 2 minutes or so, they were spitting up blood and phlegm into a bucket. It was pretty horrendous. And then they tried nebulizing colloidal silver and hydrogen peroxide together. And, you know, as I expect you know, colloidal silver is a natural antibiotic, so brilliant for a lung infection that this person had. And the hydrogen peroxide, if you nebulize it, and you want to nebulize it no more than really about 2% strength, dissolves phlegm. So within about 3 hours, this poor guy was able not to have to spit in a bucket every 2 minutes. And his wife told me that 3 days later, that within 1 day, pretty much all the lung problems had stopped. And three days, you know, he had no more lung problems, at least to that level. So hydrogen peroxide is an amazing tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you look at it, there are just so many different things, aren't there? There's plants out in the jungle, and there's all sorts of different things that you can do. Let alone mind over matter and Reiki and laying on of hands and all these sorts of things. So how we actually managed to fall for all this time with chemotherapy and all this sort of stuff and irradiation of the body, and how on earth we fell for it, I have no idea anymore. As soon as you start looking into these things, and the 1939 Cancer Act, etc., everything from the Gerson therapy right the way through, you know, clean vegetables, vitamins, minerals, like you said, distilled waters, and all these different things. It's amazing we've managed to stay unconscious for this long, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite surprising. But people are waking up to natural medicines finally.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in there and say it's not surprising actually that we got duped for so long. That's the problem with having, you know, trusting nature. You know, we trust in our friends around us, we trust in our families, we trust in you know, the fact that somebody claims to know something, and even the ones that, like the doctors and whatever, that were going to be trained, they trusted in those teaching them that they were being taught the right things and that the right information was getting there. So, not surprising at all. That's how the trusting nature of man has been used against it. And that's not to say that we don't trust. This is where we learn to use our intuition and our own intelligence. So, and that's what's happening. And you're right, Clive. The planet is awakening. I did want to get one little technical thing out of the way. We are broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio. I just need people to know that. There is a chat room at Critical Mass Radio. However, we're not broadcasting through them. We're separate from them right now, and just to save any confusion. So if you did want to use the chat room in CMR, it's there, criticalmassradio.co.uk. That's great. But just like we were doing on Freedom Reigns, you can call in through the Skype button on where you're listening right now, and you can also call in at area code 661-467-2401 for anyone that wants to call in. 661-467-2401. Carry on, gentlemen. You're doing great. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Where were we? One of the things that I wanted to move on to was, and this is, I'm pretty damn sure it is Greg Braden, and there was a particular clip which literally took me back, and it was about 3 Chinese practitioners of Reiki. And what actually happened, just to set the scene, is the Chinese lady that had, I think it was intestinal cancer, I think, and she actually went in to see these Chinese practitioners. Now, the first thing that happened, and people can find and see this for themselves, the first thing that happened is they gave the woman an ultrasound, only to find a small, virtually a satsuma-sized growth in her stomach. And they took a snapshot of this through the ultrasound on a video camera on a TV screen, and they put this to the left-hand side, and then they proceeded to video the actual tumor itself while the three Chinese doctors actually chanted over the lady that was being treated, the patient. And they were chanting words to the effect of, "It's already gone, it's already gone, and it's already gone, it's already gone," and they speeded up as they were chanting this. And over 3 minutes, or just a bit less really, you saw this tumour shrink before your eyes and literally, bang, disappeared. I'm not sure if you're aware of that clip, Clive?
Yes, no, I've seen it. Yeah, very powerful. Assuming that as you say, that the cure has already taken place, and watching it shrink right in front of their eyes. People forget how quickly the body can repair. People forget that they can be well 1 minute, and within minutes, within hours, they can be desperately ill. They forget that it can go as quickly in reverse. They assume just because they're really ill, it might take a year to get better. They forget they can get better incredibly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the point. Again, we've come to rely on Western medicine rather than trusting our own intuition and all the rest of it. But like you say, you can only have the rug pulled under you so many times, and then you pretty much, you can pull it if you like, but I've got my weight on something else now. You can pull all you like, it's still not going to shake it. And that's where we all need to get to, really. Instead of trusting what we're told, actually go out and do the research for ourselves. And as we were discussing today, educate ourselves to the facts.
Well, we've been educated to believe that health is a very complex subject, and you've got to go to medical school for 6 years plus to learn about health. But people forget the fact that doctors don't study health. That health is not on the curriculum. What's on the curriculum for them is radiation, surgery, and drugs. At no point is nutrition given any prominence. I was speaking to a doctor, or trainee doctor. She was about to take her exams last summer. I met her about 6 weeks before her exams, and I asked her a few basic questions relating to health, and I was really quite shocked that she couldn't answer them. And she admitted that, as doctors do, that what they do is they manage manage disease rather, that they are disease managers. And I asked her, for instance, what does magnesium do in the body? And she couldn't answer me, and which is extraordinary, because some people would say that magnesium is the most important of all the minerals, because without magnesium, none of the other minerals work properly. Without the minerals working properly, you can't use vitamins properly, and so on. But I don't know whether you know, but in the emergency room of the hospitals, that's where the good medicine goes on, because their prime objective is to save a life. All the others treat disease. So in the emergency room, a good emergency room doctor will know that if you've got, let's say, 4 patients walking in the room, or being carried into the room, and they're all either having heart attacks or strokes, if you just left that to happen, 3 out of 4 are going to die. But if you injected them with magnesium, particularly magnesium chloride, instead of 3 out of 4 dying, only 1 in 4 would die. And but the doctors next door aren't taught that. The GPs aren't taught it. And so how to tell if you're low on magnesium is if you get muscle cramps, leg cramps, foot cramps, for example, or if you have twitches around the eyes, or even hiccups, all those are signs of a magnesium deficiency. So let's say you've got one of those problems. You've got a spasmodic problem. You're having spasms. Now, if you have a muscle cramp or a spasm of the heart, well, that's called a heart attack. And so anybody who's getting those warning signs needs to be aware that they're the ones at risk from strokes or heart attacks. And the reason everybody's low on magnesium, when I say everybody, it almost is everybody, unless somebody's eating an immaculate diet, is because magnesium's been removed from most foods. You know, if you take salt, for example, real salt, which is dried ocean, is wet. You can dry it out in the oven, but as soon as you take it out again, half an hour later, it's wet because it's absorbed water from the air. And so the salt companies take out the magnesium because it's the magnesium that makes salt wet. Magnesium attracts water. So they take the magnesium out to make the salt dry. And in removing the magnesium, they usually remove some other minerals to some extent as well. Then they tend to bleach the salt to make it white, because normally dried sea is a bit grey. So if you're eating dry salt, it hasn't got much magnesium in. Let's say that you take brown rice. You take the outside of the brown rice off and polish it. You've thrown away, say, 98% of the magnesium. If you take wheat and you turn it from brown whole wheat into white flour, again, you've thrown away at least 98% of the magnesium. If you put chemicals on the soil to grow crops, you've wiped out lots of the microbes and the bugs and the life in the soil, which again helps put the magnesium in the plants as they grow. So one way or another, there is an epidemic of magnesium deficiency out there, and people are dropping down dead every day because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There were several points on that I wanted to go to. One of them being initially, one of them was the conductivity of the cells. Another point was actually and that's the bit I'm struggling with. I can't exactly remember my point, but I'm going to be writing these down for example. But yeah, just looking from an energy level basis, I mean, cells need to communicate with each other to pass bioelectrical signals backwards and forwards. And one of the main properties is, of course, the salts or the magnesium within the cell body, which allows it to communicate. So do you want to give us any information on that initially?
Well, possibly one of the greatest books on healing that I've come across recently is by Jerry Tennant, called Healing is Voltage. And in Healing is Voltage, he explains how the cellular voltage how the voltage of cells work, and how, for instance, it relates to pH. There is a direct correlation, a mathematical correlation between the pH of the body and the voltage of the cells. So you want your cells to be running about minus 20 millivolts. Now, if somebody's ill, they might, let's say they've got cancer, they're probably running plus 20 millivolts. Now, if somebody's in healing, full-on healing mode, they might be running minus 50 millivolts. And if they've got cancer and about to die, they might be running plus 50. Now, plus 50 relates to a very low or very acidic pH. Minus 50 is a massively alkaline pH. And, you ask a doctor, what does pH stand for? The chances are they won't even be able to define it. And pH stands for potential hydrogen. Now, bearing in mind that hydrogen is the smallest atom, number one on the periodic table, and we're mainly water, we are mainly hydrogen atoms. So our pH, our potential hydrogen, is massively important. So important that depending on it, depends whether we're in healing or in decline. And so number one is, if you want your voltage of your body to be right, you've got to be hydrated for a start. And most people aren't fully hydrated. Most people are so dehydrated. Some people, some authorities would suggest that a lot of people are 20% dehydrated. So, if you're 20% dehydrated, how much access to your brain do you have? Can you access 100% of your brain if you're 20% dehydrated? I mean, your brain's what, 80% water, something like that. So being hydrated is absolutely number one to make sure your cell voltage is up, and then to make sure that your cell voltage is up. The best way is to test your pH with some pH strips, particularly when you wake up first thing in the morning before you've drunk a glass of water. Test your pH then, and if you're running acid, well, that means it's you know what you ate yesterday wasn't didn't have enough fresh fruit and vegetables in it, for example. But you can correct these situations, and one of the best ways to correct the situation first thing in the morning, if you're not as alkaline as you should be, is to get a lime or a fresh lemon, squeeze it into a big glass of water and drink it. And strangely, while you're drinking something acidic, the reaction of the citric acid in your body turns your body alkaline in response. So you can very quickly put yourself back into healing mode.
Yeah, absolutely correct, absolutely correct. And like you said, you'll be amazed at the amounts of water that you need to keep drinking to remain hydrated, or at least get yourself to the point where you're not dehydrated any longer.
If you're feeling thirsty, you're probably past the point of, you're already very dehydrated.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, I couldn't actually remember what it was the situation whereby strokes as well in the voltage of the body. One of the things that could be done in emergency rooms all over the country is treatment with scalar or energy medicine to victims of strokes, because there's massive recovery situations go on with people who've had strokes that get treated with energy medicine. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but it's absolutely incredible the amount of recoveries, full recoveries in a lot of cases.
You're putting ATP back into the cells. You're stimulating the mitochondria to make energy again, aren't you?
Exactly, and plus you're transferring the actual voltages of each cell, and boosting the communication again. That's what it's all about, to break down blood clots and recover from damage that the brain has undergone.
Yes,
it's incredible technology. Any other areas that you wanted to point out there initially?
Well, one of the other absolute bedrock things that people need to know is that everybody is low on iodine.
Yeah.
And the reason I can say that is that if people are bathing, showering in chlorinated water, or worse still, chlorinated and fluoridated, they're going to have thyroid issues. And if anybody wants to look at the symptoms of a low thyroid and compare them with symptoms of fluoride poisoning, they're identical. They're absolutely identical. And so, unfortunately, chlorine and fluoride have been wiping out the iodine, and people have been making hormones out of chlorine and fluoride instead of the iodine. And there is as everybody probably knows, there's a thyroid epidemic out there. And funnily enough, up until the 1940s, doctors knew exactly what to do with thyroid. They used your temperature as a way of telling whether you were high or low, whether your thyroid was balanced or not, and they used iodine to correct it. And they used very, very high doses, whereas today doctors are taught to use micrograms rather than the doses of maybe several hundred times higher that they were using in the 1930s. But in the 1930s, they were getting cures. But now, obviously cures are not what they're going for. They just go for treatments.
Exactly. If there was one magic pill that corrected everything, they'd only sell the one pill, wouldn't they?
So with iodine, people can tell if they're low by taking their temperature. if when they get up in the morning, let's say 5 minutes after they've got out of bed, take their temperature. If they're low, if their temperature is low, chances are that's indicative of a thyroid issue. And the doctors in the old days would have said, right, well, just take some iodine and keep taking your temperature every week or every few days, as often as you like. And when your temperature is normal, then you've got enough iodine in your system. And there is a brilliant book by Dr. David Brownstein called Iodine, which is well worth reading, but there's masses of information about iodine on the internet. There are different types of iodine. The one that I use is Lugol's iodine because it's inexpensive and works extremely well. And people who've got brain fog, often they find that after taking iodine for a little while, their brain fog lifts and they've got much clearer access to their brain. Certainly when I started taking iodine, I noticed how much sharper my brain became. I wasn't struggling for words anymore. The thought process just lightened right up. And other ways to tell if you're low on iodine, people with the outside of their eyebrows missing, that's usually indicative of a problem. People who have got cold hands and feet, iodine regulates temperature control. And the important thing to know is that in England recently, the government did a test on teenage girls to find that something like 60-odd% were low on iodine. And if you're low on iodine and you give birth to a child, that means that child will be born with a low IQ. And if a woman is really low on iodine, it means the child's going to be born a cretin. So iodine is just super vital.
Yeah, totally. A couple of the things on the iodine front, actually, as well, while we're on that subject. One of them is I recently found out that the EU are outlawing iodine for one particular point. I don't know if you've heard anything on that subject.
Well, they would outlaw everything if they possibly could. In America, you can still get iodine, but you can't get it in the strength that you used to be able to. I don't know what's going on in England with it. I've not heard they want to shut down iodine, but I have. I have heard they're no longer selling it in chemists. Yeah,
we bought some of the last bottles as in a small stock when there was an incident. I believe it was Fukushima. Yeah, when Fukushima happened. Because obviously, as you know, the thyroid is one of the glands in the body that helps clean out the radiation from, things such as Chernobyl, Fukushima, etc. But yeah, we went and stocked up on it at one particular point, but I'm not sure if they've stopped it now. I need to go and check that to see if that is in fact true. But I would suggest to anybody, if you can still get it, go out and get it and get yourself a stock of it. I believe it was only about £1.50 a bottle last time I looked.
Well, it used to be 99p a bottle when I last bought some at the chemist, but that sort of iodine is fine topically, but not necessarily what you want to drink. And while using it topically works, using it topically and drinking it helps, and that's where Lugol's comes in, but it's still cheap. On my website we sell Lugol's for £18, and there's enough there to last you 1 year and 4 months. The advantage of Lugol's is it's got potassium iodide as well, which is what the army give the soldiers when they think they're going to be subjected to nuclear radiation. Because if you've got enough iodine in your cells, then radioactive iodine literally will just float right past you. It's important that people understand that if you're frightened about radiation, if you have all the nutrients that you need, all of them, radiation is not going to affect you the way it would somebody who hasn't got full nutrition going on.
It's like positive or negative ions, isn't it? It is an attractive force or a repulsive force, depending on which caliber, which frequency you're tuned into. But that gets a little bit etheric for most people. But just on the subject of iodine, also good sources of iodine are kelp, carrot, spinach, mussels, and small fry fish, I believe, certain varieties. Yeah, very important. And as you said, topically is the way to use it, the soles of the feet or on the wrists. And another way to tell if you are iodine efficient is actually to apply it topically on, let's say your wrist area. And the quicker that the iodine is absorbed into your system, the more deficient you are. I don't if that rings any bells with you.
I've been using that as a test for many years, but there are a lot of people who will tell you that actually it's not that accurate. I think it's fair. It's a good indication, but the sort of iodine professionals, if you know what I mean, the Dr. Brownstein and so on, would say that an iodine loading test is what you want to do. But frankly, one can just assume pretty much that everybody's low on iodine these days if they're in contact with bromine, chlorine, and fluoride.
Which 99.9% of the people are.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that... I'm sorry, no, go on.
No, carry on. I was going to move on to another topical stuff, but carry on.
The other really crucial element that you could say everybody is low on are minerals. And the problem is that the normal school of thought will say, look, here are the, however many, 76 minerals. There are, roughly speaking, 50 that are essential. And then out of that, they usually pick about 20 that they seem to think are really important. So if you go out to the health food store and you buy perhaps the best multi-mineral on the shelf, chances are it's not going to have more than 20 minerals in it. And now, not only do you need the essential 56, but you actually need all the others as well, because they're only just finding out what the others do. Let me give you an example. There's a trace mineral called yttrium. Now, the researchers will tell you, a biochemist will tell you that the body does not use yttrium. You can't find it in the body, therefore you don't need it. But it's recently been discovered by Dr. Olroy that, in actual fact, very, very important bacteria in your gut, which are in control of your immune system, they need yttrium. So if you don't have yttrium, your immune system can't work properly because you're not feeding the bacteria you live in symbiotic relationship with. So, how do you get yttrium and all the other minerals? Well, the ideal way would be to get a bucket and spade, go outside, dig up some soil, pour some water on it, mix it up, strain it off, and now drink some nice muddy liquid. That would give you the perfect mineral balance, assuming that we're in the forest where we're meant to have lived. If we wound the clock back a few thousand years, we could have just dug up the forest floor, and it would be perfect on mineral balance, because if you think about it, all life is there in the soil. Every insect, every leaf, every animal, it all just goes round and round and round as the soil builds up. Yep. So there are, while we don't want to drink a gallon of muddy water, there are places in the world where geological happy accident has created huge deposits of mineral concentrates. You know, the kind of thing where a rainforest gets crushed over the millions of years, and now it becomes coal, or it becomes oil, or it becomes diamonds. In some places it becomes these mineral concentrates, and they're called fulvic acid deposits, or fulvic mineral deposits. There are a few powerful ones in the world, and I started reading about these fulvic minerals and reading about absolute miracles with them. I read the Chinese were using them, curing pretty much everything, and I started sending off for fulvic minerals from around the world, because I realized they're in the soil everywhere. Fulvic minerals are in the soil wherever you are, to one degree or another. So bottles of fulvic minerals started arriving from around the world. Mostly they were quite large bottles, and I would dutifully try it, and I felt nothing. And then I sent off, it was almost a sort of last shot, and I got this tiny little bottle, tiny bottle, which was meant to last 3 months. And I tried it, and then I woke up the next morning, I felt completely different. I felt like a different man. And a couple of weeks later, I realized how different I felt, which was that it felt like 20 years had just dropped off my body. My body felt so fit. And not only that, but I found that after a while, which I had a slight tummy at the time, I found that I just wasn't hungry like I used to be, and that I went back to the weight I wanted to be. And what was happening was that suddenly I was getting the nutrition that I'd been looking for. I'd been overeating, like most people on the planet, because they've been eating food that's nutrient deficient. Clearly the food that you buy in the supermarkets, Deathco food, is grown on depleted soil. So the most vegetables and fruits out there are completely devoid of minerals. And so fulvic minerals are the perfect way to get all the trace minerals. With the macro minerals like magnesium, there isn't enough magnesium in fulvic to be viable. You have to have magnesium separately, for example. But the interesting thing about the fulvic coming from the soil is that not only are all the minerals there, but all the rare earths are there. Now, the rare earths are being increasingly linked to longevity and increasingly important. And there's also every amino acid there. There's all life in that perfect balance. So when I discovered this stuff, I started giving it to everybody I knew, all my clients, everybody I knew, and I started getting the most ridiculous results. Just after about 3 days, a friend of mine who was 3 months pregnant rang me up and said, that terrible morning sickness I was getting, it stopped. I'm not saying that fulvic acid is the cure for morning sickness, but for this girl it was. And that was a few years ago, and now people are saying all sorts of things. A lot of people say, oh, well, my thin hair, now it's growing back thick. People said, oh, my fibromyalgia, I don't have it anymore. Those cold fingers and toes that I used to have, I don't have them anymore. There are many people who would say that a mineral deficiency is at the bottom of every disease that's out. And the more I observe, the more I think that's probably the case. There's always a psychological, emotional reason as well. But sometimes I feel that people fall prey to the psychological issue because their body wasn't strong enough in the first place through a mineral deficiency. I mean, for instance, if you're minerally deficient in magnesium, the chances are you're going to be anxious and worried and not be sleeping as well as you might, which is going to mean that you're far more susceptible to a mental trauma if one came along.
There's also in fact, there's several differences just on the minerals alone. We can be talking about, if people go to the high street stores and the mass producers of vitamins, minerals, a perfect example is vitamin C and iron, equals rust. It depends on where you get the supply of vitamins and whether they're quality of vitamins or whether they're mass produced in China and stocked over on the UK shelves for people that think they're doing good by, I'll go to H&B and get a box full of, this mineral and that vitamin and this oil and that oil. And 9 times out of 10, because of where the minerals, vitamins, all of the other trace elements, etc., the ones that are stocked on shelves, 9 times out of 10, they're coming from places that aren't done correctly in the first place. They're not quality minerals. And over and above that, a lot of them aren't organic. They're actually, non-organic vitamins or minerals. So, when we actually think we're doing some good stuff for our bodies and have every intent to do so, we're actually putting the wrong stuff in there in the first place by not realizing the sources and the quality of what we're using.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's quite frightening, actually. I was talking to the boss of one of the big supplement raw material suppliers, and they were telling me that 95% now of the vitamin C that's on the market is made from genetically modified corn in China.
Yeah.
So, not only that, most of the vitamin E these days is synthetic. And the nature of the beast is such that the good vitamin E is D-alpha tocopherol, but the bad stuff has exactly the same name with one letter change, DL-alpha tocopherol. They've deliberately named the synthetic version to confuse you. Sounds just like the real thing. And so the majority of I asked this person who runs the company, who buys the most expensive. Who asks for the best supplements you've got, and who asks for the cheapest? 95% of her customers ask for the cheapest. So you could extrapolate that you can only 5% of the stuff out there is good quality.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about buy them in cheap and stack them high, isn't it? That's the problem. That's the mentality that's gone awry somewhere.
It's why it's so important to find somebody that you can trust to buy your supplements off, more and more so these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also brings us, you also mentioned, there's several points I could have bring up, most of which I've forgotten now, but one of the other things that you mentioned was the synthesis that some of these things undergo. I mean, if you smell a beautiful, pure peppermint oil, it's absolutely beautiful, and you look at the molecular structure of that peppermint oil, it's similar to a stick man with one leg to the left, okay? And if you actually go out and you get dill, which has basically been synthetically altered, it's still basically the molecular structure is that of peppermint, but they've just flipped it round. So instead of having his left leg missing, the metabolical sort of like structure of this enzyme will now be like the right leg's missing. The right leg's, he's got the right leg and he's got the left leg missing. So it's crazy. The slightest synthesis on these molecules, and it completely changes everything about, doesn't it? Dill and peppermint smell completely different, but they're practically the same molecule, just one's been slightly twisted in the opposite direction.
But if you want to look at things that have just been slightly twisted, look at food. When I was young, cucumbers were bent, and cucumbers had quite viable large seeds in. Oranges always had seeds in. Grapes always had seeds in. Everything had seeds in. These days, people are eating seedless grapes, seedless everything, and they think that nothing's changed. When I was young, spinach was rather bitter. Now, most spinach is very sweet. It's been hybridized to such a degree that being seedless means that it's sterile. We're eating food that is so far removed from its natural way of being that it can't even have babies anymore. It's super dangerous, and people wonder why they're not getting the nutrition that they should. The figures that the government itself puts out as to the nutrient value of food means essentially that you want the nutrient value you got 100 years ago, you've got to eat 40 times the carrots.
Yeah, absolutely, because all of the nutritional value has been taken out of the stuff, and it's been done deliberately. But this is one of the other things that people have got to get their heads around. It's crazy the magnitude of this stuff. What was the other thing I was going to? Yeah, also antibiotics. If you go to your doctor now and you've got anything from flu to a virus or just to feel pretty icky and stuff like this, I mean, when they put you on a course of antibiotics, what most people don't realise is, number one, the antibiotics are dangerous and bad for you, and number two, they're going to wipe out all the good probiotics in your system in the first place as well, which in turn is going to prevent you from actually digesting the food and the vitamins, minerals and nutrients and enzymes in the food, which actually builds your immune system to defend against these things in the first place. So even having antibiotics is counterproductive to the system.
Well, antibiotics translates as anti-life. And if you're taking an anti-life tablet, as you rightly say, if you don't take some pro-life tablets, you're in big trouble. And at this time of year, in winter here in the UK, our ancestors would have been eating fermented foods to have just got through the winter, because there's no fresh stuff growing at the moment. Outside my house, we've got about 5 inches of snow. And in those fermented foods would be all the probiotics you could ever dream of. And they say that 90% of the immune system is in the gut, where you need those bacteria, enzymes, and yeasts. We're supposed to be between 50 and 100 trillion cells, but there are at least 200 trillion bacteria in our gut, and without them, we're just not well. So those antibiotics, the chlorine in the water, is merrily wiping out all those friendly bacteria. And the cheap way to put them back is to start fermenting things, to ferment vegetables, which is so ridiculously easy and ridiculously healthy.
Well, that's yet again, you've reminded me of one of the other issues that I wanted to mention earlier but forgot, and that is basically barium, and the fact that barium is 10,000 times more poisonous to the human being than lead, and the fact that with all the chemtrails and all the barium residue / fallout that's falling on crops, food, and vegetables that have been grown out there, just that alone is adding towards the Alzheimer's and the fibromyalgia and all the problems that people are suffering. So, I mean, one of the things, or one of the helpful hints to be able to get rid of some of those heavy metals and those toxins is silica. If people were taking enough silica to be able to drench some of the metals out of the body, aluminium's another one. If people are drinking out of aluminium beer cans or eating out of aluminium trays, they're absorbing aluminium, and aluminium shuts down the thyroid and stops the expulsion of these metals and worse out of the system. So, you got any comments on that?
Well, if you want silica is delicious and growing free everywhere. The top 4 leaves of stinging nettles make the most fantastic spinach-like thing, particularly if you puree it. Absolutely full of silica, make your nails and your hair strong. Stinging nettles are absolutely brilliant. The stinging nettle root is brilliant. The stinging nettle seeds are brilliant. Anybody who wants to detox any of the heavy metals and the radiation, there are a couple of things that are really important to know. One of them is that the fulvic minerals are perhaps the best detoxing element you can get, because what they do is they hydrate the cell so that more water can get in. It increases the oxygenation of the cell, and the fulvic goes into the cell, strips out and neutralizes toxins, and puts all the minerals that should be there back in. It's an amazing substance from that perspective, as is zeolite. Zeolite, as you probably know, is a volcanic rock, and when the molten lava comes down the volcano and hits a body of water, there's an incredible reaction that goes on, and it makes this sort of honeycombed structured cell. So if you take some zeolite internally, it sucks all the toxins and radiation out of you into itself, enabling you to excrete it. I think probably one of the major toxins of the lot, more worrying than the barium or anything, are the poor people who've got mercury in their teeth in the form of silver fillings. They're the ones who really need to get some of the poisons out.
Yep, totally. There's some videos for the listeners out on YouTube where they take amalgam fillings and they put the fillings under a black light and scrape the fillings literally just with a tiny little, I don't know, let's call it an implement. And basically the gas, mercury cyanide vapors that come off of these things are just incredible. Every time you're actually chewing on these things, they're releasing this gas into your system. I mean, my God, come on, as if this stuff could have been happening by accident. They knew damn well what they were doing. So, this is the disgusting level we've had to realise that this is what the governments are doing to us. If this wasn't enough, we are being fundamentally and literally poisoned through the water, through the air, through all of these things that we're talking about. And it's time we said enough's enough and put a stop to it. So, sorry, that's just my 2-second rant on the subject. But yes, you're absolutely correct. Amalgams are incredibly dangerous.
One of the things that I find amazing is that most dentists, when they were at school, were taught in chemistry or whatever that mercury is a dangerous toxin. It's always been known. When I was at school, they said, whatever you do, don't touch the mercury. I used to take the mercury home in my pocket and play with it all the time. But so on the one hand, dentists know that mercury is dangerous, but even if they know that, they will get struck off if they tell their patients that, because the Dental Council has declared that the mercury is perfectly safe. It's incredibly dangerous, except if it's in your teeth and in your mouth, and then it's safe, apparently. So that they'd lose their job, their whole livelihood, if they said to their patients that mercury is dangerous. It's an absurd situation. When I give talks, I explain to people how to spot psychopaths. Do you know how to spot a psychopathic child?
Not necessarily. No, you got me on that one.
Well, they were at school. There were one or two at school, maybe. They were the type that pulled the wings off flies and were really, really nasty. And so imagine that, here's a psychopathic child. They're say 3 years old or something, 4 years old. They know they know very young that they're psychopaths. They know they're different to everybody else because they've had to lie to their parents, because what they really want to do is put the hamster in the microwave or beat up their sister or something, and they've realised that for some bizarre reason, when they hit their sister, mummy gets cross. So they've had to learn to hit the sister when mummy isn't watching and pretend it's not happening. So they become very, very versatile actors at a very young age, and they realise they can manipulate all those other mugs around, because the 99% don't realise they're being manipulated. And, of course, the psychopathic child can spot other psychopathic children. They can recognise each other, and they enjoy being psychopathic because they can exploit everybody. So let's say now the psychopathic child grows up and decides, well, what profession am I going to go into? Well, we know the professions of choice for the psychopath. There's politician, there's captain of industry, there's low-life thug, there's some prison officers. There are all sorts of jobs they might choose, but a really good one is dentistry, because you can drill holes in little babies' teeth, and their mum is so pleased that they give you a bottle of whiskey at Christmas.
Oh, crikey. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, I was talking
I hear so many stories about people who say, well, when I was 11, I had no problems with my teeth, but the dentist drilled holes in most of them.
Yes. Again,
it's obvious it was for money.
Well, this is the point. It's like the medical institutions. The doctors have been taught what they wanted them to know. Now, the fact that you're drilling away most of the healthy tooth to stick a load of rubbish in there, in other words, amalgams, etc., when in fact the reality is we could be regrowing the teeth back into place. And also, when they're doing root canals, they're shoving in metal spikes into the energy meridians in your jaw. Now, there's been stories where women have been in for root canals, and this one particular woman I'm referring to had the metal, let's call it the root, inserted into the root canal for a tooth, and she went blind. And she turned around and said, oh my God, I can't see anything. And then the dentist went, what? And she said, I can't see, I've gone blind. And then he pulls out the root again, and then she can see again. And it's like, well, if that hadn't have happened at that given point, 2 months down the line, 2 weeks down the line, she could have gone blind, and then, she'd have gone to all the specialists in the land. Not one of them would have attributed the tooth root canal treatment and the fact that to that relating to her actually going blind. It's awesome. It's incredible.
Well, there are a lot of people who would tell you that every root canal has an infection, and I mean the ridiculous thing is that there's no surgeon in the world would ever do an operation and leave dead tissue in the mouth. No surgeon would do that except a dental surgeon. Dental surgeons routinely leave dead tissue in the mouth when they do root canals. It's no wonder that people have problems with root canals, but they don't know it because obviously the nerves are being cut, so they don't feel any pain. And the number of people who have had their dentistry corrected and the cancer has gone away, the paralysis has gone away, the brain fog has gone away, the arthritis has gone away, the Alzheimer's has gone away. Dentistry is so responsible for a lot of the ill health out there. It's absurd.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
I interviewed a guy called Ramiel Nagel, who's absolutely fantastic and has written a brilliant book called Cure Tooth Decay that I'd recommend to everybody.
Yeah, what's some of his advice, Clive?
Well, grains are one of the issues. pH clearly is one of the issues. I'd advise anybody to go on to Ramiel Nagel's website. He has brilliant information that he gives away. People should read him right away. Most fantastic information.
Yeah, some incredible stuff that's been out there for all along, and we didn't actually know it because we trusted on not bothering to look, assuming that people knew it for us.
Yeah, I mean, I make sure my teeth are fine by every few days holding some colloidal silver in my mouth, because I've got a root canal and I'm concerned that I've got an infection there. So, there are two ways to deal with an infection under a root canal, whether you know you've got it or not. One is colloidal silver on a regular basis, hold it in the mouth for a few minutes every few days. The other is to use a magnetic pulsar, because with a magnetic pulsar you can send an electromagnetic pulse into any void space. And so that's the problem with dentistry. Often there's a contraction. The filling contracts slightly. The plastics that they use contract over time, so you can leave voids. So electromagnetic pulsing is perfect, and one can build one pretty much for free using an old flash gun. Bob Beck put the instructions up in about 1990 for that.
And camera electrodes as well. But just on the tooth, I mean, we're talking about the dangers of fillings and the amalgams and all the rest of it. If people are worried about the amalgams, there is something that they can literally do. If you go and look at oilpulling.com, that's a very good website. But all you need to make sure is that you do not the oil. Now the principles are that basically you put some of the oil in your mouth and you swish it around for probably 5 to 6 minutes or something like that. And what this oil will do as it's moving around, it will draw out all of the nasty stuff that we've been talking about. And but what you've got to do is make sure you get rid of all the oil out of your mouth afterwards, because it will literally draw it out of the amalgams, and then you can spit it out and your mouth out afterwards. Because you do not want to swallow any stuff after you've done oil pulling, and that's just one bit of advice. And that can help keep down what do we call them, abscesses and infections of all different sorts relating to teeth. So there's a good bit of advice for people that can do something tomorrow morning.
Yeah, oil pulling is brilliant. Another good thing to get mercury out is to eat coriander.
Oh, that's a good one.
Either fresh coriander or coriander, put into a soup. Possibly the most effective thing to pull mercury out.
Okay, brilliant. Mercury is a metal, and metal silica again, just for reference. But all sorts of topics. I'm trying to remember. I did actually have another topic I wanted to move on to, and I've done it again. I can't quite remember what it was. All sorts of different areas that we can go. Fluoride, that was the one. If people aren't already aware of the damage that fluoride does to teeth and bones and all of us, brain tissue and all sorts of other things, people need to be pretty much checking it out for themselves. Have you got any comments on fluoride initially?
Well, a bit of boron or borax in water that's been fluoridated the borax will pretty much neutralize the fluoride, because there aren't many things that will actually do that. Fluoride was used in all the concentration camps because it makes people docile and compliant. So one wants to do everything one possibly can to get fluoride out, reverse osmosis, distilled water, both those things that get fluoride out of your water supply, but you want to make sure that you're not getting it in through the skin by bathing in it. And there are some water filters that will filter out fluoride, for bathing.
Yeah, there's charcoal filters that are actually very good for that as well, isn't there?
No, charcoal won't get fluoride out.
Okay. What would you suggest for fluoride in specific?
Well, there aren't many things. There's reverse osmosis. There are some filters available with zeolite in, which will get the fluoride out, but your average filter won't.
Okay, that's interesting. Reverse osmosis is a subject as well, because I have actually heard, and I've got to be honest, rumours that if you strip in the vitamins, minerals, supplements, etc., and the goodness out of water, and you're absorbing large amounts of water, then there's an equal balance. In other words, if you've got a body that's actually got vitamins, minerals, and supplements in your bones and your tissue already, and then you are consuming lots amounts of reverse osmosis water, it can leach the minerals and vitamins back out of the bones and the organs of the body. What's your take on that?
Well, water is the universal solvent. So if you put distilled water into a body, all sorts of dissolvable solids will go into that distilled water. It's an empty vessel waiting to be filled. So what I would do if I was drinking RO water or distilled water is I'd want to do two things, ideally. I'd want to put it through a vortex, and you could do that by putting it in a bottle and swirling it. That would create a vortex. You'd see a nice little sort of storm happening inside. And then I'd want to add something like one of Patrick Flanagan's products, Crystal Energy, for example. Do you know about Patrick Flanagan?
Not necessarily, not really, no.
Well, just very, very briefly, when he was aged 11, he was a child prodigy, and he went in for a science competition in America that was open to children of any age, and he won it aged 11 because he developed this device which could detect a nuclear missile launch or an atomic bomb test anywhere in the world. So he goes back to school on Monday, and the Pentagon take his invention, make his father sign something to say that he'll be hung for treason if he tells anybody how he made the invention. And they go away. And when he's 13, he invents another machine. And this one, you put two pads on the body, and deaf people can hear.
Yeah, I have heard about his stuff, actually. Now you mentioned what it is he did.
And so he started working with water. And so if you put his water product, like Crystal Energy, in it, suddenly water becomes something like 2.5 times wetter. And it seems to be one of the very few things on the planet to reverse cellular aging and increase the length of telomeres, which is extraordinary. That means that you are, on a cellular basis, getting younger rather than older, which doesn't normally happen.
This is one of the things that Hitler found out with his Hitler's, what was it, the Teutonic Knights, etc. This was some of the information that was actually found out by the Knights Templar, etc., and that was given to Hitler a long time ago. I just happen to know. But yeah, that is an extraordinary situation, but it does appear to actually be true, both on a practical level and a physical level. So don't be surprised if some awfully young SS people turn up in flying saucers. And
as far as I can see, while people are getting younger, I've noticed that their faces don't appear to be. So, I don't know whether you know about telomeres and telomerase.
No.
Well, 2008, 3 people jointly won the Nobel Prize for the discovery of telomeres, which are the strands at the end of your DNA. At the end of each strand of DNA, you have telomeres, and they shorten depending on what's happening in your life. If you have a trauma, for example, you might have a sudden shortening of telomeres, and you've got sort of something like 50 replications of the cell until it dies. So you want to make sure that your telomeres stay as long as possible for as long as possible. So the reason they won the Nobel Prize is for the first time they can measure this. So that means that you can measure your telomere length, then a month later measure it again. And so you can work out if you've changed something in the way that you've been eating, drinking, living, supplementing, you can see whether it works or not. So the moment they were able to measure whether your cells are getting younger or older, they started looking at the longevity herbs that people have been talking about for millennia. So they started looking at the Chinese longevity herbs like ginseng and astragalus and things. And the first one that they found that lengthened telomeres was an astragalus root extract, and it was the 65th telomere activator or telomerase activator that they tested, so it's called TA65. And people have been taking that now for about 6 years. I met David Wolfe last year who was taking it, and there's a brilliant film about it on YouTube called How to Live to 150 and Beyond, where people will explain just how they feel on this stuff. And so there are now, there seem to be 4 different products now on the market that are proven to reverse aging. So things are getting quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There was also, it's not called a telomere, but maybe you can refresh my memory, because I think I need a few rehydration sessions myself. There's also an element of the actual cell that builds up the cell biology's waste. And if they figured out that if there was any way of building up this little node that fills up with this waste that's consumed fuel by the cell, they figured out if there was a way of turning that off, that there was no reason for death, no reason for mortality. And in fact, we could actually have immortality. So I don't know if you've got any insights on that in the DNA front.
Yeah, there was a scientist who was keeping some chicken cells alive, and he was pretty sure that it was that cell death is triggered by environment. So he found what he reckoned was the perfect environment for these cells, and he kept them alive for 35 years. Right? Chicken cells don't normally live for 35 years, and they were still as young as ever. It was only that somebody accidentally turned off the fridge that his experiment ended.
Blimey.
Yeah. So it does appear that in the right conditions, there's no reason why we can't have a life extension where we're healthy and feel great. I spent quite a bit of time studying the longest-lived people on the planet, and the Hunza, by far, were, possibly still are, the longest-lived people on the planet. They were living to 130 plus, and what they were capable of doing was incredible. And I read a book by a guy called G.T. Wrench, written in the 30s, about the Hunza, and he studied their diet, he studied everything about them, and one of the reasons that they had this incredible longevity was the water that they drank, which was glacial. They called it glacial milk. It came through very milky coloured because of the rocks that it ran through. And Patrick Flanagan's water products are the result of something like 40 years of research about Hunza water. And so I started studying what the Hunza ate, as well as what they drank. And on my website, I now sell some of the Hunza foods because, one of the things that the Hunza did was they ate apricots, Hunza apricots, which are the most delicious apricots in the world, and they ate the kernel from the apricot, which, as you probably know, is full of vitamin B17, the very stuff that they made the film A World Without Cancer about.
Yeah, and at the moment, I understand as well, over in Missouri and places in the States, they're making it illegal to have apricots that have got the kernels in them, and they're genetically modifying the kernels or breeding or hybridizing the kernels out of apricots and making them illegal. Again,
Clive said, I was going to say, just going to jump in for a sec, Clive said it very clear at the beginning. Anything that is deemed to be healthy, the system is going to do its absolute utmost to get it out of our diet so that, they kill us by default. It's a lot easier and it's harder to prove killing something like literally starving them to death than by putting a bullet in their head. So absolutely. They tried to. Well, I don't know if they have done it, but good luck. I mean, here's the thing: when a government passes a law, the only people that actually follow it are fools, because the government is not there to help you. As much as they sell the whole notion, and that people feel this need to lean on that crutch called government, they need to get their heads examined, because the medical profession is killing people. The psychiatric profession is killing people. Dentistry, by far, is one of the most lethal. That's why there's the highest rate of suicide amongst dentists. The karma that's the energy, guys. That's nothing to do with psychological. That is karmic energy. When you are willfully harming another human being, in ignorance or otherwise, you're still harming, and that's karma. So no surprise there. Anything that's good for you, look for them to ban it or GMO out of existence.
Well, a patient cured is a customer lost.
Absolutely. Again, the price of one pill.
Well, I know it's crazy. And look at the American psyche of the world. North America. I'm not just talking U.S. here. Canada as well. It's just as bad. Every other commercial. I don't watch TV, but back in the day, there was those they'd like to watch, and every other commercial was a pharmaceutical that said this will heal this, and then they give a list of about 40 things that are potential. Things like blindness, may cause death, may cause heart attack, and that was their disclaimer. To say, if you take this stuff, you can't sue us because we told you.
Yeah. Well, no, they're actually, what's the word I'm looking for, legislating against being sued in the first place, and that includes vaccines. So they've got out of it one way, if not another one, and they've just simply changed tack. But also on that note, we've got Codex Alimentarius and all the other nefarious things, Agenda 21, that they're bringing in, and all the rest of it. So, yeah, the basic overall program is to kill us all by one means or another. Quickly.
Well, Tony, the only ones that are going to fall for that are the ones that are going to fall for it, and therein lies the solution. Every individual has the collective solution for themselves and for their own families. You got to start to wake up and decide whether or not that guy in the white lab that was able to genetically modify a mouse to have a human ear growing off its back has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a fact, by the way. There's a particular lady. I have to pull up the website and go through this, but I've already contacted someone. Cynthia is her name. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, her blood, she has a very rare, or her DNA rather, has something very rare in it that makes her impervious to toxins and diseases and poisons.
Yeah,
well, that could be a handy thing to know about.
Well, exactly.
Well, she's went through a living hell. When I get the story up, I'll probably cover it this week. What this lady has went through. Remember the Dolly the sheep clone? It was actually humans they were cloning, guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't sheep. That DNA that they were talking about was hers, and it's quite a fascinating story. If people want to get a really good idea, if you're going to worship your government, that God is going to kill you. Guaranteed.
Well,
how about you wake up and decide that maybe what these guys are telling you may not necessarily be good for you or true. Turn the TV off. That'd be a good start. Well, by the way, don't just turn it off. Unplug it and smash it.
Put it out the window. Put it out for the dustbin, man. Right, just on the other subject, a couple of other things that we were talking about earlier was longevity. And if we refer back, just for example, in the Bible, Noah had a lifespan of 800. It tells us in the Bible. Now, there's lots of allegory and all sorts of other things, but the fact remains that we used to have a lot longer lifespans than we actually have now. And it's just the toxins and the lack of all the good stuff that's leading us to dying early. As Kate was just saying, it's no longer good enough for us to die early. They need to make us die quicker, so that we don't raise this consciousness that we've been talking about here. Because if enough of us as a collective raise our collective consciousness, then that will affect everybody around us, whether they're in direct communication with or not. They actually are, because they're involved. They're inside our energy fields, our toroidal fields that emanate from our hearts. So, talking on the longevity thing, there was a lot of German experiments done. I'm not sure if you're aware, Clive, where they took old age pensioners that have got all these old and decrepit things going wrong with them, and they took them back. They put, I think it was about 40 of them, into a confined environment where they played music from when they were 30. They showed them newspaper clippings, indicative of the day when they were about 30, and they carried this thing on. And what actually happened is these people started getting better from their ailments and actually getting younger to some degree, and getting much healthier than when they were when they went in.
The BBC did a TV program about this, actually, a few years ago.
Yeah, it was also duplicated in Russian experiments as well, wasn't it?
Well, the power of the mind. You can do the most ridiculous things with the power of the mind. I was so impressed with what you could do with the power of the mind that I learned how to do hypnosis, and the stuff that I've seen happen with hypnosis is just ludicrous. One of the classic things they do when they're teaching you hypnosis is to do the iron bar thing, where they say to somebody, right, you are an iron bar, you're unbreakable, and the person's lying down on 3 chairs, one on the ankles, one on the tip, on the head, and one under the bum. So you tell them they're an iron bar, then you pull away the middle chair, so now they're impossibly dangling on their ankles and the tip of their head. Then you get 3 or 4 people to sit on them, and the body can do that. It's just ridiculous. There's a great one where you get somebody to say, right, you can't see the person in front of you. Then you hold a watch behind the person, and because they don't see the person, they can tell the time.
Yeah. Well, that's something else. I was actually going to refer to that example, but yeah, it was a daughter and his father, wasn't it, on stage, and they hypnotised the father to believe. Was it they hypnotised the daughter not to see the father, or the father not to see the daughter? One of the two.
So the first time I ever did self-hypnosis, I had a terrible migraine, and I was in deep, deep pain with it. And I knew that because I'd had migraines before. At that point, I didn't realise that I was dehydrated. The only reason I got migraines is I was dehydrated, but I didn't know that then. So I went up to my room to sort of die for about 7 hours, and I suddenly remembered I could do self-hypnosis. So about 15 seconds after I did the it took 30 seconds to get into the hypnotic state to say the words, and the migraine switched off like a switch. Boom, gone. Pain, totally gone. And I couldn't believe it. It was just ridiculous. I felt like God, I could control pain. And about 3 weeks later, I had another migraine. And I thought, oh, great, it's no problem. I'll just do the same little hypnotic technique, and it wouldn't work. So I went back to my hypnosis teacher, and I said, why didn't it work? It worked the first time. Why didn't it work the second time? And he said, oh, well, your subconscious hadn't figured out that you could do hypnosis. It's not going to let you in that deep again, because you got into the deep level where if you'd said, I want my heart to stop, it would have done. You would have just died. So now it knows you can get that deep. It's going to put more barriers in to stop you meddling. And but again, I saw just the power of how powerful the mind is.
That's a very interesting thing. I've never actually heard that put that way before. But when I was a lot younger, I got my first book was Ronald Schoen's Creative Visualization. And I remember reading this book, and it was telling you how to stop pain and how to do all sorts of things, to visit your guides, to astral project, to do all these sorts of things. And I started practicing it, basically. And one particular time when you mentioned about that toothache, I had the same thing. And it walked me through this creative visualization process. And indeed, like you just said, it just turned off toothache straight away. And it was like, whoa. And then I started getting deeper and deeper into it. And the one thing that just brought that back to mind was I had an out-of-body experience in it. Because I think it took me about 20 to 25 minutes to get really, really deep, to the point where I literally could lift out of my body. And I kid you not, I stepped outside of my body, and it scared the living out of me. And I could never do it since. And that was, I literally felt myself outside of my body, and there's no kidding about that. It just scared the life out of me, and it just, poof.
But you should try it again from a state of love, knowing that this time you're not going to be scared. This time is going to be fine. Do it again, because getting out of your body is a lovely place to be.
Yeah. Again, this was more of a physical thing rather than an astral projection. Astral projection, yeah, remote viewing, no problem, all of these sorts of things. But this particular one was literally to leave my body on the bed and go out. And I literally, when I felt myself leaving, it scared the crap out of me, and I just never went back there again. It's like, no, can't do that. So, but yeah, you might be right.
Well, yeah, maybe you're describing something different to what I've described, or what I've come across. So, yeah, well, the power of who we are.
That's fascinating stuff.
Well, one of the other things I'd like to just mention, because I think a lot of people need to know this, is that people don't understand what we're made of, particularly what the brain's made of. And what I'm particularly referring to is the fact the brain's made of cholesterol. And the brain is water primarily, and then fats. So people have been given all this stupid advice like eat a low-fat diet, and that low-fat is good for you, that cholesterol is to be avoided, that you've got to be careful of eggs and never eat coconut oil because that's full of nasty cholesterol. And nothing could be further from the truth. I've seen people who have reversed 2 years of Alzheimer's by eating coconut oil, by rebuilding their brain with the cholesterol that should have been there all along. Alzheimer's, you look at a brain with Alzheimer's, there are sort of holes where the brain ought to be, because if you starve your brain of cholesterol and the right type of fats, and your body has to make do with artificial plastic fats, people get, what some people call stupid brain disease. But the good news is that you can reverse Alzheimer's, and 4 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil is an ideal way to do it.
Yeah, fascinating. I'm not aware of anything I don't think that can be reversed apart from decapitation. The power of all of these things is there if we sort of look for it, isn't it? But
it's amazing how many people ring me up and say, I've got such and such a problem, and I ask them, have you gone onto Google and put your problem with the words natural cure attached? And it's amazing that all these computer-savvy, very intelligent people haven't just put in their problem natural cure onto Google. It never ceases to amaze me. People are so programmed to give up their power when it comes to health. If they wanted a new washing machine, they'd probably put quite a bit of effort into looking at the different models and possibly going into different shops. Or if they wanted their living room redecorated, they'd really plan it quite a lot. But the very first doctor who gives them a diagnosis, they believe that, and off they go.
Yeah, job done. One more SESCOV account activated. Yes, or deactivated. But, yeah, awesome stuff. Well, I mean, we're about 10 minutes to the end of the show, Clive, so can you give out your website details, any programs or projects you're working on, and some up-to-date information if you'd like any participation by members of the public to give a bit of information about it?
Well, my website is called ancientpurity.com, ancientpurity.com. It so happens that tonight our website is down because we're putting a new website up, which hopefully will be up tomorrow. And on there is lots and lots and lots of information, masses of, I think, incredibly useful information, lots of videos, an awful lot to learn. And what we've tried to do is to take the thousands of brilliant supplements in the world and try and pick a few of the very best ones. So rather than having thousands of products, we've got a few that I think are just absolutely brilliant, ones that hopefully one's going to take and notice a difference right away. A lot of people, when they take, let's say, the Mega Hydrate, they notice the difference in minutes. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a fast turnaround in how you feel. You want to feel more energetic, more like you did when you were 5. That's what we're looking for. The ones that really, really, really work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the focus is on food as the first choice. If you can eat the right food, that's a good start. So we sell quite a few superfoods, and I recommend that people sprout food. If you want the best emergency food you could possibly have, it's just got to be seeds. Organic seeds for sprouting. They're very inexpensive, and even if you don't have a garden, you can have fresh salads every day by sprouting seeds. And you can sprout an entire salad. You can sprout things like alfalfa. You can sprout broccoli seeds, which taste fantastic. You can sprout onion, garlic chives. You can sprout everything you'd normally put in a salad. Celery seeds, beetroot seeds, and any seeds you like, you can sprout. And it's very rewarding, very, very quick, and it's so cheap. I like sprouting things like mung beans and chickpeas and so on. And you carry home 1 kilo of chickpeas or lentils or something. Once you've sprouted them, they now weigh, let's say, 3.5 kilos on average. So you cut your food bill, but by a vast amount by sprouting them, and it's so healthy. A sprout of a plant can crack the concrete in a motorway. The power of sprouts is incredible. So, occasionally people are brought to me who are sort of like 100 years old, and what I want to say to them is, you need to eat really good food. You want a big salad and eat really healthily. But they'd respond, well, I can't. I'm tired and I'm not well. I can't eat. I've got no appetite. So you can take a couple of kilos of salad in the form of sprouts at its plants at their most vibrant, put them into a good quality juicer, a slow juicer, and then the old person now can drink that. One fairly small glass of superfood juice can get people who are on death's door back alive again, because nutrition is what powers you up. So I'm very big on suggesting to people that they learn how to ferment their own vegetables, that they sprout seeds and pulses and so on. And I'm also very, very keen on the dehydration idea. And at the moment, I eat loads of kale. Now, I never used to like kale, but what I do is I dehydrate it, mix nutritional yeast and a few seeds and tiny bit of Celtic salt, and I dehydrate the kale in the oven, and it comes out like crisps. Tastes like the consistency of potato crisps, really crunchy and incredibly savoury, and it's still raw, because if you dehydrate it at 43 degrees, for example, you're eating raw food. But raw food is what we're meant to be eating. That's what our ancestors would have eaten thousands of years ago when we were living in the forest before we invented barbecues. But people, particularly in the winter, people don't want to eat salads. But by dehydrating food, you can get most of the goodness. The enzymes haven't been wiped out, and brilliant way to eat. We also get fruits from places like Uzbekistan, from the forests where things are still growing wild, and so lots of these sort of products and various energy devices are on our site. We also do stuff like an artificial sun. This is a NASA development that's about 3.5 times the power of the sun, but with the dangerous UV and IR cut off, so you're getting the middle range. And if you take your clothes off and sit in front of this light, boy, is it incredible. It's just amazing. If I have it on in the daytime and then I turn it off, my children go, "Oh no, Dad, turn the light back on again." It's fantastic. It makes you feel so happy. So there's so much technology. I mean, for asthmatics, we do a little thing called it's a type of ionizer called an elanra, which micronizes oxygen. So you can breathe in ionized particles, negative ions, and so people with asthma who maybe have difficulty breathing properly at night, difficulty sleeping, have the elanra on, sleeping, no problem. No problem at all. Yeah, there's just incredible technology.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need to get you back on next time as well, Clive, because there's so many more areas we can go into. But hopefully next time we'll get you on. We'll get Richard Cumbers on, and we'll talk about some laser equipment that we use together with lots of other technologies that are pretty incredible for healing, including in more depth in energy medicine. So that'll be great to have you both on board at the same time. That'll be awesome.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, Clive. Well, thanks to everybody for listening tonight. Blueprints of Cosmic Consciousness with Clive DeCarl, and I look forward to speaking to you all again pretty much soon. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great job tonight, guys. Lots of wonderful information. With the website and information, I do urge people to stop by. Links will be posted on Facebook, etc. You can get to me at kate.rene.5, kate.rene.5. You've been listening to Cosmic Blueprints here on Blog Talk Radio. Much appreciation to Critical Mass Radio for giving us a platform to have our voice heard. We'll probably be on again tomorrow night if I know me. Anyway, much love to everybody. I'm on with Kyler Davenport at 10:30. I'll be posting that link as well. So thanks again, Clive and Tony. Great job tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.